Can't hear you.
Oh, no, yeah. Oh, still can't hear you. Oh.
Should we wait for you, Carrie? Just give us a thumbs up when or a thumbs down. And Michael and John, I'll send you a link after the meeting for tomorrow.
Okay, do we want to get the meetings started?
Yeah, why don't we just go ahead and get the meeting started. I'll call to order the April 21st meeting of the Carmel-by-the-Sea Climate Committee. Looks like everybody, I see Lynette just joined us and Carrie is in and out, so I think we're all here. And someone, Nancy Toomey. First thing on the agenda is public appearances. Any members of the public that wish to talk to us? Nancy or Kiara? Laura, hi Laura.
Hi, how's it going?
Good.
Good to see you guys.
So we'll just, no public comment, we'll just proceed on to the agenda. Item number 1, review and accept the revised Carmel-by-the-Sea Climate Adaptation Plan.
So you have in the agenda the revised plan. So at the last meeting, the Climate Committee had a number of comments which were incorporated into the plan. Some of the major edits included adding the need for a coastal engineering study in the section about the vulnerability assessment and also in the implementation section. So we did that. There were a number of edits in the strategy. Some of the more significant ones included adding a virtual resilience hub in addition to a physical one. We added a community engagement plan. We we combined some measures. There was a resilience, building resilience and electrification measures were combined, and then we moved a couple of strategies around. And then finally, we added a sustainability commission element in the implementation section of the plan. So those were the main edits that were included. I just wanted to see if anybody either in the audience or in the committee had any additional comments before this goes out to the public and to our commissions and city council.
This is Lynette, and I don't want to be picky and stinky, but I still have an objection to us having pictures of specific businesses in town. I think it's easy to criticize that. And Carmel Valley Roasting Company and Suvicino, I just am not really fond of that. I had mentioned it before. I see there's no change in that. I think we have a number of other visuals that could replace those, and I would hope that would be considered.
Yeah, we could do this. We felt that we needed to show the downtown a little bit because business community is a significant element of the adaptation plan. We could change that. We could put some more, city public facilities as a picture instead if the committee feels strongly about that. But we had left the businesses because because of the business element and the downtown element of the adaptation plan.
I really think that it's important to show the downtown, but I don't think it's great to show a super close-up of one company's business sign. And I don't even think Jack London's even there anymore?
It hasn't been there for a while.
Yeah, well, and that picture has Jack London's at Suvicino. So I don't know, I guess I would just like to see some different images in those two instances. I'm sure we have a lot to choose from of all the photos that have been taken of the downtown area, but I'll let it be at that.
Any other comments from anybody?
Carrie, do you think we should wade into this?
Yeah, I think we should. So I agree that we need a more updated picture of the businesses. I think that's important. Maybe a shot of the downtown Ocean Avenue area would be better than a specific one. I think that's how we could address, I agree, we need to include the business community because that's a part of who we are. So maybe a downtown shot of Ocean Avenue that is more generalistic would be helpful and would address Lynette's concerns.
I can do that.
Michael?
Michael?
Yeah, I agree. I think we might be accused of favoritism or something, if we just show one specific business. So just a general shot of the downtown, I think, is more appropriate than a specific business.
There are only two pictures that are at issue here. Is that right, Lynette? The one that's on...
Yes, exactly, Jeff. Just Carmel Roasting Company and
Suvicino.
And Suvicino, right. Those are the only two.
Okay. Are you, Lynette, would you be okay if we, well, let me ask everybody. John and Michael and I are going to be talking to some members of the construction community, and I know we're all going to be doing outreach over the course of the next few weeks. So
right.
Would you object if we just left this in the draft report and then just change it out for the final report?
Sure. Yeah, as long as it being in the draft report isn't going to cause any pushback or feelings of, as Michael said, favoritism or other undesirable reactions.
Yeah, I'm just asking where I was going to have Evan and Brandon print up, a dozen copies for next week, and I'm not sure we can physically get to changing out the pictures before then.
If that's the only edit that we're doing, I can possibly do it tomorrow. So if there are no other major comments, and that's the only edit, we might be able to get it done tomorrow. As long as the weather's reasonable, because we might need to take some photos, because I don't think we have any really sort of broad photos of downtown, which is fine. I don't mind going out there and taking a couple shots, so.
Well, Agnes, we've got Visit Carmel has a photo. If you go on the Visit Carmel website, we've got a bunch of downtown shots.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't.
They're all around.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see what we can do about getting the photo in before we print it for your meetings next week.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want you to spend, 8 hours doing this and then have us change them again because they're not perfect or whatever. That, Just trying to be conscious of your time. Okay. Should we go on to the next item? Maybe this will be a short meeting.
Sounds like we're done with the adaptation plan, so that's great. So the next item is the draft climate action plan. So the climate action plan, so that's the first time you guys are looking at this one. It was developed based on the data that was provided by LSA. And we made a few changes to the reduction measures. We didn't remove or modify the measures significantly, but what we did is we sort of consolidated them into 6 goals instead of 9, because it felt like there was just a lot of goals in the LSA reports. And a lot of the measures were sort of similar between the residential building, electrification and energy efficiency, and then the commercial ones. So we combined those measures. So those were some of the big ticket items. I was going to share my screen and sort of go through the report and see if committee members have comments. So let me do that.
Let me ask you a favor.
Yeah.
I have at least just one little comment. Could we just do this? Could we handle sort of the comments and the public participation sort of page by page?
Yes.
Rather than waiting until the end. So I'll try to be good at looking for people raising their hands. So I'll ask, or Anya or I will ask after we sort of go through this page by page.
Okay, so everybody can see the front page, correct? Yes, okay. Okay, so our page. Any comments here?
Nice picture.
All right. All right, then we have the credits and acknowledgements.
Yeah, so I actually do have a comment here, a nitpicky little comment. Could you format the public member section a little differently rather than just have the public members be off to the right somewhere?
Yes, did you want to?
I'll leave it up to you. I think the way that it's formatted is just a little awkward.
Okay.
And then if you could just fix my name. You have John instead of Scott.
Oops.
Or you can put me as John Doe if you want.
I'm sorry. I don't know how that passed through.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay.
And as long as we're being nitpicky about it, since isn't the right word in the last sentence, we can figure out what the right word is offline, but make a note, we should fix that.
Okay.
Or maybe just say meetings starting and rather than since.
Okay. Next page. All right, so then we move on to the introduction. That is where we introduce sort of the scope of the plan and the revised goals. So we now have 6 goals. Energy efficiency and electrification in residential and commercial buildings, improved transportation choices, renewable energy sources, water efficiency, waste reduction, and urban forest protection and heat island effect reduction. Any questions or comments here? No, looks like we can move on. Then we have the greenhouse gas emissions inventory and forecast. So this is mostly taken out of the LSA report and summarized here. There's no real new information. That also includes a discussion of the transportation greenhouse gas analysis. Comments. And then we have the greenhouse gas inventory results, which you've seen before. I think the most important table is on page 4, and it has sort of the numbers for greenhouse gas emissions for on-road transportation, electricity, natural gas, solid waste, wastewater. So that's really sort of the most important table in that section, I think. any
So
here.
questions here. I have one if no one else does. So where do we define scope 1 and scope 3?
There is a definition up in the text over here on page 3. It describes anything within the Monterey County boundaries is considered scope 1, and they're counted towards inventory. And then we have a description of scope 1 and scope 3 there.
So are the scope 3 emissions, are we, I guess it would be, I would like it if it was a little clearer about whether we're talking about emissions that are within the city or without the city or outside of the city.
They're outside of the city. They're actually outside of the county.
So if we, for example, we've had this running discussion about, let's just say a visitor that drives down from San Francisco, and that's, let's see, 2 hours. So that's, let's say 200 miles round trip. Is the contribution to the scope 3 emissions there 200 miles or is it 100 miles? Because we're only taking credit for, we're only sort of taking half.
Correct. So say about
correct 100 or correct 200?
So correct 100. So if they drive 200 miles, there's about 80 miles of it within the Monterey County. So they would, 120 miles would be scope 3, and then 80 miles would be scope 1.
And so I guess my question for you, and I guess for the committee, is what do we, is that the right amount of ownership for our community to take for those 200 miles? Like, are we responsible for, if we just consider the 200 miles from San Francisco, are we responsible for all of the scope 1 and scope 3 miles, or half, or do we want to maybe we should just leave that open? Like, if we leave it open and we change our definition later on this, and we need to sort of come back and revise the benchmark that we're setting, or, that we're using here, will we be able to do that?
I think so, because right now what we're saying is we've accounted for the scope 3. We're not including it in our target. Scope 3 is outside of our target, but if at a later point in the future we decide that we want to include scope 3 in our target, we could do that, right? So when you look on page a little further up on this greenhouse gas emission targets, these targets that we have, the scope 3 emission is not accounted for in our target, but it could be if we decided at a later date to include that scope 3 in our targets, we could include it. I would recommend at this point that we get the program started and see how well we're doing, and if we want to be, so scope 3 at this point is not, it's not required for us to do anything, to follow any standards that the state has, right? However, if the city at some point wanted to be extra, go the extra mile, we could say, well, now we want to, affect the scope 3 a little bit more and take that into account and put that on our targets. So that is something we could do. I would recommend at this point that we just start with scope 1, because we're going to have plenty to do just with that.
Thank you.
And we do keep track of it, so we do have that information.
Yes, it's Lynette. I had a question actually in the next sentence after the scope 3 definition, where it says, although these indirect emissions are not included, is indirect actually the right word to use? Because it sounds like it's not like a real emission. as opposed to it's an emission that's not within our boundary?
So that's per the definition. That's why we call it indirect. It's the definition of scope 3. It's because we don't want to double, triple count emissions. And so if, trips that happen within the range of the Bay Area will be counted within the Bay Area climate action plans. And so that is the way that the climate action plan, the greenhouse gas emission accounting is done to minimize the amount of double and triple counting that we do. And that's why they consider those quote unquote indirect emissions. That's just what the definition calls it. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're not still partly, at least, the cause of it.
Right. I understand that part. I guess my question is definitionally the word indirect. If that's what's used kind of classically or in the jargon or in the discussion of greenhouse gas emissions, some are direct, some are indirect. I just have this vision of indirect as being something that is like not directly put into the atmosphere, but that's where my question came from, is the definition of the word indirect as opposed to how it's used here. But if this is the way it's used in the dialogue, then I'm okay.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, Lynette. It's going to be a difficult one because it's not that it's not really going into the atmosphere. It's more that we're not directly responsible for these emissions, which it's awkward. I agree.
You think we could put like a 2-sentence definition of indirect in there somewhere?
Yes.
That would be perfect.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions here? Okay, we'll keep moving. So then we have the greenhouse gas emissions forecast, which includes the business as usual and adjusted business as usual forecasts. That's all basically from the work that LSA did. And then the targets. Any questions or comments on these sections? No, I'll keep moving on. Then we get to the strategies, right? So there's a one-page intro. We followed the same format as the adaptation plan strategies so that the two reports are kind of work well together. We have the 6 primary goals, and then under each goal we have measures and then actions. And then for each of those measures and actions, we have metrics, timeframes, implementation lead, and then cost ranges. And so if we go into the table, so I'm guessing there will be some comments here in the table. So we'll go page by page in the table. So starting with goal 1, energy efficiency and electrification of residential and commercial buildings. We have measure 1.1, energy efficiency training, education and incentives, and recognition for residential and commercial. Any comments here?
I have a comment here.
Okay.
On 1.2.1 at the bottom, we talked about sort of requiring electric car functionality to be built into the buildings, and I'm not sure I saw that anywhere. I see the reference in 1.1 to heat pumps and battery storage. But an easy thing to do, which I thought we had talked about, which we could pretty much do now, would be to modify our codes to require, new or extensively remodeled, however we define those terms, to be basically electric car ready with a 220 outlet or whatever it is that's required sort of near the street.
Okay.
So I know we talked about that. And then, so that's one thing. And then the language here, potentially through a reach code, it sounds a little, and this would just be me, it sounds a little wishy-washy. Like, is there an alternative to how we would do it, like other than a reach code?
No, and actually that's the reason why that one's a little more wishy-washy is I actually pulled that one out of the adaptation plan because that seemed to be the action that was needed before going to before doing a reach code. But the following measures or the following actions actually include a reach code because yes, we do have to do a reach code if we want to meet that requirement. It's a critical path, I think, for a climate action plan.
So we could take out
yeah, I can modify that potentially.
Wishy-washy language. I see Laura has her hand up.
Yes, thank you. Jeff, this is kind of going back to a comment that you just made in regards to new build versus extensive remodel. If I understand it correctly, in the next building code that's going to be rolling out in the next year, all new builds are going to be required to wire for electric vehicles and for electric appliances, basically. So that one's pretty much covered by the new code that's going to be coming into effect on the 1st of the next year. But the extensive remodels, that's where you might want to put a little caveat of requesting that or demanding it or however you want to word that the infrastructure get put into place at the time of remodel.
Okay, yeah, that's a good comment. I actually had it in the back of my head that maybe electric car readiness was in the code. So thank you for that.
Yeah, you got it.
And not only that, but you also have to have electric connection to any gas appliance for future conversion is also required.
Yeah, so I guess that's sort of in the same vein as the electric car hookup.
Right. Yeah, all that's
facilitating electrical stuff.
Yeah, that's addressed in the 2022 code, which takes effect January 23.
Yeah, my preference would be to just leave that stuff in our documentation anyway.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. And I can include that information in the sections that deal with renovation. So I think action 1.2.2 maybe, yeah, under reach code. Maybe that might be a place to include, electric car readiness in remodels also. Okay. Sorry, before I move on, any other comments on that first page? Laura?
Sorry, I actually prematurely raised my hand for the next page.
Okay, sorry.
on yes, I have just a very brief comment. Under the implementation lead, Public Works is the only one abbreviated. Maybe just for continuity, they're either all abbreviated or all spelled out.
Okay. No.
I would, of course, ask that they all be spelled out.
Okay. Sounds good.
Wouldn't building be part of the implementation on 1.2?
Yes, they would. Okay. I'll move on to the next page. Okay. Laura, you have a question.
I do. I got a comment for this one. After going through that, this particular page and this particular section, for the metrics, for particularly action item 1.2.2 through 1.3.2, I strongly feel that passive house principles and methodologies should be listed here. And the reason being is passive house principles focus primarily on energy efficiency and energy use, and is quantifiable with their what they call PHPP, passive house planning package. It's their energy calculations, energy modeling for each house that's built. And when you compare it to, say, LEED, which kind of focuses more on proximity to public transportation or toxicity of building materials, which is also important too. But when we're talking about climate change, I really feel that energy efficiency and energy usage is directly relatable to climate change. So I'd really like to see that in there, please.
My question related to that for Agnes and I guess Evan would be, that's really not something we've discussed. And are you comfortable sort of sticking that in at the last minute without us really understanding what those items are? Now, admittedly, we haven't really discussed the LEED items either. But what Ms. Tugwell is describing seems to be a lot more far-reaching, especially if we put it in the metrics, the metrics column.
I could see us being sharing information on passive house on our website and at public events and that kind of a thing, because it is starting to be a bigger program. So I don't see an issue, and I'm sorry if there's a lot of background noise behind me. Apologies. I could see us sharing the information to the public. I don't see an issue with doing that. It's not a proprietary thing. So much like LEED, I could see that being shared as an information piece. I don't have a concern with that. In terms of outreach, at least.
Is that what you were talking about, Laura? Just outreach? Okay,
Yeah, as
so
far as
no measurement related to anything passive house or LEED wise. So it's just basically outreach.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, my bad then. Thank you.
Of course.
Laura, what sub-paragraphs are you referring to? All putting that in all three of these?
Yeah, I was looking at specifically action 1.2.2 through 1.3.2, anywhere that it pretty much offers up Title 24 and LEED and that kind of a thing as the metric. I really strongly feel that passive house should be in there as well, because it's way more effective than any of the other things. Like I've said before, Title 24 is basically just barely passing the test. It's like, okay, you can build this house because it's not going to fall on your head. That's really nothing that we should be striving towards. I think that at this point in the game, we should be looking at things that can make bigger change.
Is everyone okay with that?
Yeah, I would just note that we do strive for having houses not fall on people's heads, but maybe that's not quite enough.
Okay, sounds good. Anybody else had any comments on that page? All right, and we'll move on to the next page. At one point, so we're talking about commercial energy renovation incentives, and then going on to measure 1.3 energy efficiency in new construction projects. A lot of similar actions there too. Any comments here? Okay, I'll move on. Next, we have measure 2.1, alternative transportation options. Any comments here? All right, doing good. Anybody? Moving on. And then moving on to measure 2.2, electrify the fleet, and measure 2.3, initiate origin destination transportation model. Anything here from anybody? Okay, and we'll move on to the next section. We are going to goal 3, renewable energy sources, promoting clean energy. Clean energy. So any comments here? Okay, I will move on. Goal 4 is water efficiency, water conservation and landscaping. Anything there? We're doing good. Okay. Then goal 5, waste reduction. So reducing waste that goes to the landfill. There's a lot to do. Well, we're doing a lot already related to this new SB 1383 requirement. Any comments here?
I have a comment.
Yeah.
You know, I got to this item and I'm just one, you know, the question that sprung to my mind is, why are we producing so much CO2 given that we recycle everything? And it would be helpful for me if there was a, you know, sort of a section on why this number is so high right now, so I could understand what we need to do better. Like, is it high because people are putting food waste in their black bin? Is it high because you know, restaurants aren't sorting their trash? What's the reason for this number being anything above 0?
So SB 1383 was just passed this year. And so people were putting waste in their food waste in their garbage before this was passed, right? And this is based on the inventory that was done a couple of years ago. And so this number does not take into account current conditions. And at the moment, we're still rolling out the SB 1383 requirements. So a lot of people are still putting food waste, I'm guessing. A lot of people are probably still putting food waste in their garbage, and it's going to be a process over the next couple of years to get everybody to do this. So that's why we're still seeing these large numbers. But because we already have this law in place and we're working on the rollout, I am guessing that's one of the low-hanging fruits where we'll be able to see improvements fairly quickly.
So to rephrase what you're saying, if magically overnight, every household in Carmel started putting their food waste into their green bin, this number would go from, you know, 1,800 to 300, whatever it is right now.
Correct.
Maybe maybe for my own peace of mind, that's the statement that's sort of missing. Does that make sense?
Yes. I can see where I can put that information in there. And Laura, you had a question or a comment?
Yeah, it's a quick question. It's about this subject. I'm curious, do you know if SB 1383 has been, is it something that the restaurants are required to do at this point in time, or is that something that's going to happen in the next couple of years? Did it start with residential and does it move into commercial next, or is it the other way around? Or?
It's we're sort of attacking all of it kind of at the same time, but we're focusing on the low-hanging fruit first. So that would be the residential properties that don't have green waste bins at the moment. And then we will move into the commercial. I believe the commercial is going to take a little bit of time for us to work with the businesses to find solutions for those who don't have a good solution in place at the moment. We do already have quite a few of our restaurants who do have yellow bins. So there's already a good amount of effort that has gone into this. But I would say it'll take a little while for everybody to get on board. And I think, part of it is the outreach, is us getting the word out and people actually receiving the word, because it's always a little difficult to reach people. And then it's capacity to then meet with everybody and sort of work out, especially in the downtown, it's going to be working out space issues and working out, operational issues with the businesses so that we can come to a solution. And so we're working with Green Waste to get the word out. And I think it's going to be a real partnership between the city and Green Waste to get everybody on board. And it'll take that long. It will.
Yeah. I would imagine that we'll see some real change in those numbers when that actually gets implemented at that level, because there's so many great restaurants in the little tiny Carmel, in the city limits.
Yeah. But we have quite a few businesses already that are on it. So that's, it's really great that, the businesses in town tend to be fairly environmentally conscious and see the value in it. So we do have quite a few businesses that are already taking advantage of the program. So
glad to know they're leading the way. Hopefully they can shed the light for the others, or maybe make it almost like a competition.
Exactly. We're actually thinking about doing that, about having them help us get the word out to the others. So
that's great. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments here related to waste reduction? Okay, we'll move on to the next one. The next one was the urban forest protection and heat island effect reduction. We have a couple of measures under this goal. We have the urban forest maintenance for shade and energy savings, and that's related to our urban forest management plan and tree forest canopy. And then the second one is using light reflecting surfaces for energy savings. So are there any comments on this one?
I have a question. On a few of the other ones, it said that where there was no reduction achieved, it said supporting action. These are just blank. Is there a reason?
Yes. So if I go back to some of the ones that have supporting action. So in this one, it's one goal with the measure. And if you see under a no enhancing, there's just 2.9, and then with enhancing is 3.0, and the supporting action help enhance the other actions so that you can get a little bit more reduction. So that's sort of how the other tables work, where some of these additional good practices would help the uptake of the programs. And so that's why we're anticipating a little more greenhouse gas reductions with the supporting actions. In the case of the urban forest item, there isn't a primary action that is reducing greenhouse gases. We have an existing, so what it is, well, really, it's not that it's not reducing greenhouse gases, is we already have a significant forest there. So we would generate greenhouse gases if we were to cut down trees and toss them. So maintaining the forest really is a way that we maintain, that we keep our reductions, but it doesn't necessarily, maintenance of the forest doesn't necessarily increase our uptake of CO2. So that's, so we want to keep this up, but it's not necessarily given us sort of a credit as far as the greenhouse gas reductions are concerned. Does that make sense? Kind of.
Obliquely.
It's definitely not something we want. It is definitely an important element of the city, though, in terms of keeping our urban areas cooler and reducing our use of air conditioning and all of that. Like, it really does have an effect, but it's already there. So it's not like we can say we will, you know, plant a bunch of new trees because we already have a lot of trees in town.
Maybe just saying that somewhere in the report answers the issue and answers the question then, is to say what a value it already is and therefore the importance of maintaining it.
Okay. Anything else here? Okay, I'll move on. Okay, so we're done with the strategies. So then we go, so then this is just a summary here of how much greenhouse gas reductions we can expect based on all these strategies. Anything here? No, we'll keep on going. And this is the revised graphic that includes the local reductions. And it shows that we are meeting our 2030 target if we, with implementation of all these actions, and that we would have to update the climate action plan to get to a carbon neutrality point in 2045, because we're not quite yet meeting that target. Any questions here? No, I will keep on moving. Okay, and so then we get to the implementation section that has a couple of sections, including strategies for success. For strategies for success, we really want to build on our existing programs and leverage our existing partnerships. We want to maintain and increase communication. We want to prioritize our actions. And then we want to regularly monitor implementation and evaluation of success and seek guidance and leadership from elected bodies. And then we have a section on funding as well. Any comments or concerns about this section of implementation on strategies for success?
Agnes, I'm just wondering where we talk about that gap between the 2030 and the 2045.
So that's, I think we have it, we do mention it. Oh, actually it is mentioned here in a summary of greenhouse gas reductions that there's cities should track implementation of the climate action plan over the next few years.
What page?
Oh, it's on page 18.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. Yes, I'd like to see that in the wrap up, because implementation is, yes, we need to do all these things to meet the 2030 goal, but we still have this distance to go. And I feel like it's something that we should point to.
Yep. That's a good comment. We can do that. And we'll add that in the implementation section.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments on the strategies for success? No. And then we have monitoring and evaluation, and that addresses having this position as a grant writer, climate coordinator, being tasked with implementation, coordination, monitoring and evaluation, and doing an annual report. And Laura had a question here.
Yeah, it's more of a comment, and it's going back to the last page. And pardon me, I'm not that well versed with that particular page, but I'm just remembering something that Amaury said. Amaury Breton, pardon me if I'm not pronouncing his name correctly. He's just wonderful from AMBAG. He had mentioned in one of the very first meetings that I attended, I think in February of 2020, when he was discussing like how to create a successful climate action plan. I remember him emphasizing the importance of like earmarking, or whatever the right word is, designating a certain amount of money from a particular, like having it already established and in place for particular items of the climate action plan. And I'm just, I like I said, I'm sorry, I haven't gotten really well versed with the funding aspect of this page, but I'm wondering if it's not in there, if maybe we should put it in there. Because I just remember him saying that was really helpful to create successful climate action plans.
Yeah, so we do have a short section on funding. With some recommendations as to how it could be funded, including adjusting existing fees to cover costs associated with new programs, allocating portions of new fees, such as a downtown parking fee to fund sustainability projects. I'm speaking slowly for my council members here.
Yeah, I'm looking for Carrie, but she's not showing up on my my truncated video here.
Yeah, I'm all for that. Yeah, We're gonna need some money from somewhere to get all this done. That's for sure.
And otherwise, exploring regional and state funding. There's a lot of sources of funding out there. It's just, it's good for us to have funding in our budget to leverage those sources, those outside sources, and to have people who have a little bit of capacity to do those grant applications, because those are time consuming, both to apply for and to manage once you've received the funding actually. So that is a point well taken. We have included actually a number of actions in the draft CIP that is going to council in May. And, you know, we anticipate continuing to push through this, but definitely this is a big program between the adaptation and action plan. It's a really big program, and if we can find designated sources of funding, that would be, you know, that will help the success of the program, I would say.
Go ahead, put parking in there.
It is in there. It's actually in there. So those are some of the ways that we've identified that we think are going to be the most likely potential sources for additional funding. And yes, your point is well taken there.
Thank you.
And okay, so any other questions here on the implementation? And then, yes, Lynette, I think that last page is going to be a good place for where we could talk about the next steps to reach the carbon neutrality in 2045. Okay. And that concludes the climate action plan. And then Appendix A just has the LSA report. So any other overall comments or questions before we wrap up this item? Okay, great. I think we can move on to the next item. Thank you, everybody, for your great comments. So we should be able to wrap up the report probably, well, make the edits in the next couple of weeks. And so we will have these comments incorporated into the report when we take it to the commissions and the city council. So we can maybe, that can be something we can discuss in the next item actually, which has to do with public outreach.
Great job, Agnes. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna stop sharing and I actually might need to share again so the next item has to do with discussing our community outreach next steps. And I was going to share my table with all the partners to engage. And so that we can maybe go over our list and see who we want to send the reports to and who's going to make sure that we have a committee lead for each of those, and then see if there's any other additional outreach we need to do before we go to committees and to commissions and city council. So let me share my screen. Okay, so everyone can see the table. So this was the table as was approved in September 2016. So it has not changed since then. So we may need to make any necessary edits. So we can go through each of the organizations and see if we are still, which report we want to send to each of those organizations, because maybe we don't need to send both reports, or maybe we do. So Carmel Area Wastewater District, and actually maybe we want to do something else and just send a report also. Maybe we don't need to. So Carmel Area Wastewater District, do we feel like we need to? So we have as a strategy to send a draft report, I'm assuming the adaptation plan. We could also do the action plan because there are some measures in the action plan that could potentially affect them, like reducing water use.
Do you think, Agnes, that it honestly matters whether we send each organization a particular one or just both of them? The action plan isn't that long as you don't put the appendix in it.
Yeah,
it's only 20 pages.
It is Appendix A of the adaptation plan. So technically, if we send them the adaptation plan that's complete, then it will have the action plan in it. So we could do that, yeah.
I would say that's just a place to make a mistake and we just don't need to do that.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, sounds good. Okay, so with the Central Coast Community Energy, I would, they may be interested in seeing both our adaptation and action plans actually. So I would recommend we send them the draft report.
I think they'd be very interested.
They really are pushing quite a few actions that we have on our list, so. KLM, I'm guessing is not going to be that interested. The Monterey Peninsula Water Management District, though, may be interested. And Michael, maybe you can tell us, would Stephanie be the best person to send a report to? Would the Water Management District be interested in seeing our report?
Yeah, I think we should send it to the manager, though, Dave.
Oh, Dave, yeah. Okay, and do you want to do that, Michael?
Yes, I can do that.
Okay.
I have his contact info.
Okay, and then green waste. I guess.
I don't think they're going to bother reading it. What do you think, Agnes? Okay.
There.
I agree. I mean, all they want to make sure everybody's doing SB 13A3. I think there's that concern. And so we can say that we're building that into the report if they ever ask. So I don't think we need to send it to them.
No. Monterey Regional Waste Management District. I have a meeting tomorrow. I'll ask them if they want it, and then I'll let you know. Okay, sounds good. PG&E.
I don't think so.
It'll just go in their circular file.
No comment. Okay, so I think we're all on the same page here. And then the AIA, John, do you think they would be interested somehow?
Yeah, I've been keeping Libby up to date. And I guess there's an easy way to send it to the entire AIA readership or the whole organization through the administrator. We could send it to her. I think we should wait until after this construction outreach, just in case there's some things that come out of that might alter it. So I think once that's through, I think we could send it out then.
Okay. All right, and John, you can take it on that.
I mean, we're going to be sending out electronic copies for all intensive purposes. So, right?
Yes, I'm actually, my thought, because it's a large file, my thought is to upload the document on our climate committee webpage and give them the link to the climate committee webpage so that they can download it easily from there.
Okay, great.
So you're not planning on sending out hard copies?
I wasn't planning on it.
Let me talk to Carrie and Chip offline and see if that's okay. The reason I know I heard the sort of not oblique reference to the circular file a few minutes ago. I think the circular file for email is even worse. If people are going to get some email with some link to download some report, I'm not sure it's going to get even one. I'm not sure anybody's going to look at it. As opposed to sending them a glossy, well-printed, even not well-printed, just bound together version of something with some color in it. What do you guys think?
Maybe save that for our priority outreach.
I think that actually an electronic copy is going to be perused. If they're interested, they could always ask for a hard copy. I'm more for the electronic file. So I don't know. I think it's important to let people know the reports are available and this is where they can take a look. So I think that's really important. I don't know. Paper copies now just aren't promoted, I guess.
Maybe I'm just old-fashioned.
Yeah, I'm not saying you're old-fashioned. You and me both do things on our iPad, so I have lots of things on my iPad, but getting away from the paper version. I think it's important to let these people know we did do what we set out to do, and that they can take a look at it. I think that's the important point.
I just have a point of clarification. I'm realizing that I'm not sure what we're talking about. The adaptation plan is finished. The action plan is still in a draft format. Are we talking about when the adaptation plan is also finished? Because are we talking about sending a draft to people of the action plan and the finished adaptation plan, or waiting till we have finished?
Yeah, we're talking about sending pre-final. So making the edits that we discussed today in the climate action plan and sending pre-final versions of both of these documents. There may still be a few edits that can be made based on the public outreach and the comments that we receive, both from some of these outreach efforts and at the commissions and the city council. We may still get some comments that we need to incorporate. So these are still pre-final versions.
Okay, but they're genuinely pre-final. They're not just draft, as in the case of the action plan.
Right.
So it would be both of them pre-final versions. Okay.
Correct.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so so we talked about the AIA, the Chamber of Commerce.
Right now, they don't have, Jenny is no longer the contact person. So I would wait on that one. What we may want to do, Jeff, is have Chip let the roundtable know that we've completed it and give them the link. Because right now, there's not many people at the chamber for this, to look at this report.
Well, you know, I get these emails from the chamber every week. I mean, it would be, I'm guessing it would be pretty easy to get the chamber to send out an email with our information in it to all the members. Do you not think?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can do that.
Did you get that, Anya? Do you know what we're talking about?
No.
The chamber sends out an email pretty often, a couple of times a week. It's called member to member.
Oh.
And some of them are sort of weekly, some of them are weekly recaps of what's going on in the village. Some of them are ads for local businesses. I think it would be pretty easy to get whoever's over there to send one out with our work in it.
With the links. Yeah.
With the links.
Okay.
I can, Agnes, I can facilitate that.
Okay, that would be great. And the chamber is listed, is listed in our adaptation plan as one of our partners. So definitely, I want to make sure they know that.
Right.
Then we have the Monterey County Association of Realtors. McCarr.
Yeah, I think we should send the pre-final link to Scott, not Ben. Ben I've not interacted with. Not quite sure why he's on there, but anyway, to Scott. We didn't, do some things he was quite interested in terms of sea level rise and getting to the updating the LCP. But just the same, I'd like to send him a pre-final link. That's agreed.
Then we have Visit Carmel.
I'll reach out to Amy Herzog and see how she wants to do that. They have a new subcommittee that might be interested in this report in particular. So I'll reach out to them.
Okay. And then we have Sunset Center.
I will send them a letter with the links.
Yeah. Okay, and then moving on to the next one. So those are community groups. The CRA, we have Nancy is still here, right? She has been, yes. So Nancy, maybe do you want, I mean, obviously you've been involved quite a bit with this group. Did you want to send the pre-final to your constituents, to the CRA members? Oh, maybe Nancy stepped away.
I'll take care of talking to Nancy after the meeting.
Okay. Rotary Club. Do we want to send them anything?
I'm up in the air about doing anything other than just sending them an email. Sending them, you know, sort of the announcement email. What do you think, Carrie? Is it worth it to talk to Susan?
Um,
Like, I'm having a hard time envisioning what we would do there.
yeah,
Given the format, which is basically, you know, 15 or 20 minutes of talking.
yeah. I don't see that their group would be, yeah. We can send them a link saying we finished the report. I think that would be a good way to go.
Okay. The Lions Club. Same.
Same. I'll let Heidi know that we've got a report done.
Okay. Friends of Carmel Forest.
I think the same. I think it'd be good to send Rainey a note.
Okay, and then Scott, you'll take care of that?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And then same with the Friends? of
Sure.
Mission
Yeah,
Ave?
no, I talk to those guys a lot, but wouldn't hurt to send them an email, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm sure they're in the loop. Del Monte Forest Conservancy. I'm good.
I never made that connection there, so.
Yeah, and I've talked to,
Yeah, you told me about that connection you made.
yes, PBCSD, because they're really housed in the PBCSD and Pebble Beach Community Services District. And they don't really have, I think PBCSD would be, sending it to the Pebble Beach Community Services District would be adequate to reach the Del Monte Forest Conservancy because they're really housed within the Pebble Beach Community Services District.
Okay, yeah.
And I could send this to Mike Nickham. That's
Okay, all right. Yeah, that's probably great to keep that link that you've made there already. Thank you.
okay. And then we have Land Watch.
Yeah, I occasionally talk to Mr. Dalapa, and I'll connect with him on this.
Okay. And then we have Sustainable Carmel. I can send an email to the folks at Sustainable Carmel. Church auxiliaries. I don't know how, Lynette, if you've got any contacts that you think would want to see the report.
Yes, I can send emails to the pastors of the churches in town with the information because, at the time we were trying to get to them, they weren't meeting or anything. Now things are going on. So I will send the email and the links to the pastors.
Okay. And the Heritage Society, Michael?
I can send him an email. I mean, I've got to get Carl's email. I have his phone number. I can contact him. I haven't talked to him in quite a while, but I can just send him a link so they're aware of it.
Okay, sounds good. And then
So I'll do that.
okay, great, thank you. And the Women's Club, Nancy comes to our meetings. So I think maybe Jeff just reach, if you talk to Nancy about the CRA, you can talk to her about the Women's Club as well.
Yeah.
Okay, city departments, I can make sure that everybody is And then Evan and I can divvy that up so then everyone's is aware.
There have been some changes at CAL FIRE and Monterey Fire, so I have to find out who's the right person.
Right. Okay, so then we're going to Forest and Beach Commission and Planning Commission in May. The Traffic Safety Committee, I have talked with Bob before about this, and I don't think he thought that what our reports had to do with were a little more. The Traffic Safety Committee tends to just focus in on sort of very specific road-related issues, and he didn't think that there would be too much overlap between our efforts and that committee.
What I could do on this is scrub through the adaptation and action plans, make sure there's no action items that might be a factor in future Traffic Safety Committee reviews. I don't think there will be, but it's worthy of another review before we cross it off the list or anything.
Okay. Oh, and now we have federal, state, and regional agencies. AMBAG, I will make sure that Anne-Marie gets a copy. USGS, I am guessing is not going to be interesting. CAL FIRE, we may have different, I don't know who the new people might be for CAL FIRE.
Yeah, I can find out that. I'll find out.
That'd be great.
Yeah. I don't think insurance is going to need it.
I don't, okay, yep, sounds good.
And there's a different contact at Fire Safe. I'll get that as well.
Okay, great. Then the Coastal Commission. We really haven't reached out to them yet. We could do this. I think it would be worthwhile for us to at least reach out to the staff and have them be aware of this.
Yeah, I don't think I agree with that, mostly because the sea level rise stuff isn't finished,
right?
Which is presumably most of what they would care about.
Right. So yes, but I think they will be interested in hearing what the results of that study are. But we can send the staff the draft report so that they're aware that this is happening. The Integrated Regional Water Management Group. Michael, did you want to try and reach out to them?
Yeah, I'll have to get a contact. I don't have any contact for them, but I would think they would be interested.
I have someone as a contact. I can look
Yeah,
that
can you
up.
maybe email that to me sometime?
Yeah.
That'd be great. Thanks.
Okay, then the Monterey County OES and Monterey County Sustainability Group. I could send both of these folks the draft documents. I think they will be. I'm not sure they will look in that detail into it, but they will be interested in having a copy. The Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary, I'm guessing, is not going to be that interested in the report. but I could send it to them just in case.
Yeah, and here's a plug for the National Geographic Monterey Marine Sanctuary episode narrated by former President Obama. I think it's on Netflix. It's really spectacular. If you have Netflix and you have an hour to watch, it's really just completely spectacular.
Okay, all right. I'll just send them an email, and then, you know, they can disregard it if they need to. TAMC.
I'll take care of TAMC and MST. The executive director of TAMC actually lives in town, as many people know, and I'm on the board of MST.
Okay, great. U.S. Navy and Coast Guard. I'm not sure they will care.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm having trouble with the contact there. And so I'm not sure if it's really necessary at this point.
Yeah, and same thing, they probably would be mostly concerned about the
coastal
rice, yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Right, then we have educational groups. Lynette and Scott.
Yes, I will send an email and the links to the Carmel High Environmental Club who worked with us, to Stevenson York, Santa Catalina, and the Youth Center. Those are the ones that I had been in contact with before, although I never really established contact with the Youth Center. And I don't know, I yield to anybody's opinion about whether we should be sending to them or not.
Yeah, and I'm not sure there's going to be much interest with CSUMB. And I didn't make contact with the others there.
Okay. Fair enough. If we have internship opportunities, I'm sure that's where they will be interested.
Anybody have guidance on the youth center? I'll do it if somebody just says we think we need to.
I'm not sure that, well, we do reference the youth center as our community resilience hub, so maybe just a courtesy to
Okay.
that, since they're listed in the report.
Yeah, if we can get a contact person, I will be happy to send the email and the links.
Yeah, I can get that to you.
Thank you. And the Naval Postgraduate School, I did not make contact. I was not successful making contact with them. I can try again if we think they're interested. I kind of feel like they're in the probably not area.
I don't think so.
Okay. Okay.
All right, and last but not least, we have Monterey Bay Aquarium, and Monterey Bay Aquarium may be interested in our efforts. They like to link the various agencies and groups that are doing good work. And Laura, you had a comment there?
Yeah, Amy Wolfram is a really amazing person. She was on the CAC, what is it, the Community Advisory Council for what used to be called Monterey Bay Community Power. I used to attend those meetings pre-COVID and pre-recording and availability on Zoom. So she works for the Monterey Bay Aquarium, and she is very concerned about the atmosphere and the environment and wants to do the right thing. So she might be a good person to reach out to.
Okay. And Carrie, you were listed as the person to reach out. Are you good with that?
Do you have her email?
You know, I don't, but I could find it for you and get it to you if that helps.
That would be great. If you send it to Anya's.
Actually, I have it.
Oh, you have it?
I do.
Oh, really? Okay. So if you send it to me, I'm happy to reach out to her.
Okay. Okay.
They went through a lot of staffing changes, so that's why I don't have a contact there anymore.
I somehow have Amy's email. I think
Okay.
she was just one of the people on one of the group emails that I received. So I can send that to you. Ecology action, I'm guessing, is not going to need our climate action plan or our plans. Then we have Pebble Beach Company. So as I mentioned, the Pebble Beach, I can send it to the Pebble Beach Community Services District, which is separate from the Pebble Beach Company. I don't know that Pebble Beach Company would want to see it.
Well, I can send it to Mike Nickum. So I think we start there.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, sounds good. And then Greg D'Ambrosio and David Schonman.
Yeah, so Greg's covered with my preserve connection. And I would say David's probably not interested since we didn't get to the sea level rise topic. So
Correct.
I think we're fine there.
Okay. Okay, and then other cities, I could share with the city of Monterey. I think they might be interested. And even city of Pacific Grove.
Agnes, again, it's Lynette, again, at the risk of being truly dense on this. When we send out emails, because these are pre-final, are we asking for feedback still? And what is the time frame for us to receive that feedback? And when will we have the pre-finals ready to send?
So that was going to be my next thing, is when can you expect me to have the pre-final done? I would say we're going to, so by, I would say a couple weeks out from now, we should have the pre-final for the climate action plan that'll incorporate the comments from today. And so those, we should be able to upload those to the website, and I can let everybody, the committee, know that it's uploaded on the website. I would say we should ask for if they have any comments on the report, and we should receive those comments before the June meeting for the city council, so that we have received, and ideally at least a week before that, so that we have a minute to think about the comments received, if we receive any. So the city council meeting in June is going to be it's going to be June 7th. So a week prior from that is the end of May. So if we could get if anybody has any feedback by the end of May, that would be great.
And then we'll be able to send these out. When would that be?
So I said, so 2 weeks from today is May 5th.
May 5th?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
So I'll, and hopefully I can get it, can get all this wrapped up before then, but I don't want to overpromise, so.
Right, sure. And then is there a feeling that we should have some kind of standard messaging, or is each of us free to develop our own messaging tailored to the groups we're contacting?
I'll defer to the rest of the committee. I think it would be okay to have tailored messaging to each of the groups we're contacting.
Okay.
I agree with that.
I agree.
Okay. Sounds good.
But the goal is to ask for feedback, right?
Well, the goal is to inform that these are out and to ask for comments, if any.
Okay, thank you.
I'm hoping that with the outreach that we've done up until the present, we won't have very significant comments at this point. I'm hoping. Okay, any other questions at this point? Okay, let me stop sharing. Okay, so I think we have our marching orders as far as public outreach. Oh, and Jeff, did you want to mention the outreach that is planned for the building community?
Sure. We're just going to have me and Michael and John are going to have a couple of short meetings on Tuesday and Thursday of next week at 9 o'clock in the morning. Sort of short versions if anyone was at or knows about the construction outreach that happened a couple months ago about updates, you know, city updates and building code updates and whatever it was, environmental updates. And I know the planning and Anya's put together a big dog and pony show. We're going to put together a tiny little dog and pony show. I'm going to put together, John and Michael and I are going to talk about it tomorrow a little bit, just put together a list of things that impact the construction community so we can answer any questions and find out if there are any big concerns. So if nobody shows up, there will not be, if for some reason nobody shows up on Tuesday or Thursday, we just simply won't do it. But if whoever's there won't do it. But if people show up, we'll just go through a few slides and we'll have copies of the report and ask and try to spot answer any concerns or take whatever concerns we have back. We'll circle back to staff after that. That's it.
I have one other question. In our communication, we should be able to say to people when the final reports will be available, either electronically or printed. What do we think that time frame is?
Well, what do we think final is, Lynette? That's a question for sort of you.
Yeah, I mean,
define your term.
Well, if this is pre-final, if the climate adaptation plan is pre-final and our intent is to get the action plan in a pre-final form for the council, then what is final and when is it? Is it after the council sees it and does whatever they do with it? Or what do we tell people is going to be available once all these comments are in and incorporated into a final document?
Right. So that'll be dependent on whether we get significant comments from commission and city council. If council is ready to adopt it at their June meeting, we could finalize the report shortly thereafter. If the council has significant comments and we need to bring it back to council for adoption, it would potentially be at their July meeting and therefore would be finalized in July. So depending on how things go with city council in June, we could potentially finalize in June or in July.
So we might be safe in saying in our communication to people, oops, sorry. Ori.
Yeah, we could be safe.
Sorry, we might be safe saying to people that in late summer, mid to late summer.
Correct, yes, absolutely.
Okay, thanks. Sorry for the bark.
Okay. Okay, so if there are no more comments on the outreach, we will move on to the last item. And the last item is discussing the potential for the climate committee to move to a hybrid format. So I included this item because this has been brought up to several of the other commissions. So the city council went back to a hybrid model for their meeting in March, and the question has been asked at other commissions whether the commissioners wanted to go to a hybrid meeting or wanted to keep it to a Zoom meeting. While the governor's order is still in place, we have the option. And so I wanted to get feedback from the committee as to whether they had a preference to stay in Zoom or to go hybrid.
I like to stay with the Zoom. I vote for Zoom.
I will stay, this is Lynette, I will stay in Zoom. I don't object to a hybrid session for those who want to be face-to-face, but I personally prefer Zoom.
I prefer Zoom also. It seems like we're not going to have too many more meetings until it goes before council, so seems like we just stick with what we've been doing.
Zoom works for me.
How about a compromise? We stay on Zoom until we have this report done. But when we start working on 1.1 and we have like 4 meetings a year, I think we should start meeting in person. I think, only speaking for myself, we do, as we found out at the council meetings, we do suffer from a lack of public participation by not being in person. I think the government needs to be where people can actually touch us. So how about if we go to some form of hybrid meetings, Anya's back, when we sort of reconvene with 1.1. Does that work? Don't everybody nod your heads in agreement at the same
yes,
time?
I'm good with that.
Yeah, the nice thing about hybrid meetings is they're both in person and Zoom. So, obviously Jeff and I have been in person at city council meetings, so we're comfortable with that. So I think we only have a couple meetings left for the final report. So keeping it at Zoom, people will be able to publicly comment on the report at the city council meeting in person if they like. So that's an opportunity to see, give people that type of form of communication. So I think your idea of from this point forward, it's going to be hybrid meetings for all city council meetings and open meetings. So we'll always have that option. I think we found out people like the Zoom format, and some people unfortunately just can't handle the technology to it. So that's why we're finding that when we do have city council meetings, the chambers are full. So we're trying to accommodate as many people as we can. So I'm good with your suggestion, Jeff.
What do you mean by 1.1, Jeff?
I'm talking about we decided either last month or a couple of months ago, 2 months ago, to sort of keep this committee around after we furnished this version 1.0. Version 1.1 would be the sort of slightly updated report that includes the information on sea level rise. And I think we had decided that we would go to a sort of a light meeting schedule, once every 3 months or something like that, just to get together and see how that part of the project is progressing along. The options were to hand it off to another body, but I think this group, I think it was pretty unanimous, decided to just sort of stick it out and see that through.
Okay.
I realize that we've been doing this for a long time. So that's why we asked last month. Michael?
I was just curious about the suggestion report about the Sustainability Commission. So that's, we're thinking of not doing that, or?
No, I think that's the suggestion for what to do as sort of after 1.1, like how to make this sort of activity part of the sort of normal fabric of the city government. We had a conversation, we had a conversation about whether those responsibilities should be folded into Forest and Beach or the Planning Commission or whatever. And I think that was what the committee came up with last month or the month before. But that will not happen. That certainly won't happen until after, it's not going to happen in the next year. So we're all good?
So what you're saying, Jeff, is the committee is going to have a bit of a break once we do the final report. And then we're hoping the committee has the interest, the current members have the interest to keep on so that we can keep pushing for things to happen rather than have things kind of drop off, right?
Yeah, I think the primary thrust is to get the sea level rise stuff done. It's easy to see that there might be little tiny other items that come up on the agendas as we have them. If something comes up or something needs to be fine tuned or something like that. But I think sea level rise was the big ticket issue, and making sure that gets done appropriately. Is that good? Is that good with everybody? I can't see Lynette nodding, so I am hoping she is.
Lynette is nodding.
Okay.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so we'll stay on Zoom until we're done with the adoption of the plan. Okay. All right. Well, that wraps up what I had for everybody.
And since we're a Brown Act committee and that's the end of the agenda, I guess that's the end of our meeting.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
See you next month.
Nicely
Bye.
done.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Jeff,
Bye.
are you going to send an invite for tomorrow's call, or?
Yeah, I'll send an invite in
Okay.
5 minutes.
Thank you.
Bye.